Welcome. This is RiaTalk for real people, where we're always keeping it real about real life. And here's your host, Maria.
Hello. 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 Welcome to Real Talk for real people. Let's talk.
So what's on your mind? What we talking about tonight?
We're talking about I'm gonna do like the preacher. If I had to take a subject, I would call it Spank or Wank. Spank or Wink. Spank. I just said a little ebonic like, but spank or wink. You know, wink.
Oh, ooh, honey.
Spank or wink.
I'm glad you told us what that was.
Well, way down in Georgia way, along some people I used to play with, they would say spank or wank. But for those that are more used to the king's or the queen's English, I would say spank or wink.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You most welcome.
Some of us were confused. They
may be confused, but if you can hear rap, you most definitely know what spank or wank means. If
I thought wank was something else.
Doobity da, boomity boom. Whatever that crazy stuff is, they understand it, so you can understand spank or wank.
Okay, so spank or wank. What are we talking about? Spank or wank?
Well, it's about discipline of children. Whether to spank your child or do you just wink at the child? That would be the title, but I would still say there's a third option, something in between. Mm-hmm. And I think most of the time it's the in between. Spank is when you spank your child or use corporal punishment, that may be an extreme on the spectrum of discipline of children. To spank the child may be considered by some to be extreme, and on the other spectrum, to wink at the child, that means hard to give no discipline. To say something like, "Oh, he's just a child. He's just being naughty," and make no corrective action. That's a wink. But then I think there's a third area, a middle ground, wherein you might not spank, but you won't wank either, but you would give your child some type, I don't like to say punishment, because I don't believe in punishment, because when you love your child, you want to give them corrective action. I call it corrective action. You want to correct the bad behavior to place the child in the best position for his future or her future.
Okay. Are you stopping for me to comment?
Yes, I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak on it. Now, if you don't want to speak on it just at this time, hey.
Oh, no, I'm good. I got some stuff already to say.
Yes, because I want to talk about sparing the rod. There is a scripture in the Bible for many people, especially for Black people. We've used that spare the rod or spoil the child. Spare the rod, you spoil the child. I still agree with that concept. If you spare the rod, you will spoil the child. Many of us have looked at that literally, meaning that you got to physically give corporal punishment to the child. Now, I don't believe that it means that necessarily. I believe you can put the rod on your child in a different, metaphorically. That means give your child corrective action, because you don't want to punish your child. You want to correct the wrong behavior. And that is what we're talking about. Spank or wank. Spank or wink. So I for many years, when I was raising my children, put your hands down before I spank you.
I thought you were going to let me talk.
Not yet. Oh, you want a spanking?
Okay, go ahead.
No, we just laugh and having fun. But I discipline my children with corporal punishment, not severe, not even 1/4 severe as what I got as a child. But it was an effort to it was always my intentions, having good intentions. When we know better, we do better. I've learned better. Like I love to say, I have learned a more excellent way because my intentions toward my children have always been good. I mean, really good. And I mean, a mother loves her children. So even the mothers who spank their children or whoop their children, their intentions are good. They want to bring about a good outcome, a good behavior in the child. So I definitely don't agree with many of these parents that allow the little Jimmy just to do whatever he wants. Little Jimmy, what should we? What do you suggest? Hey, the criminal justice system has a juvenile system because it has been recognized that it takes time for children brain to develop their development, even their control, their ability to control certain what's the word for their certain instinct, not instinct, but certain when they feel compelled to behave a certain way, to control their compulsiveness. It takes with age. For example, I remember when my son, my adopted son was about 5. I think he was about 5, and he was wetting the bed. And at that time, I was not aware that it takes boys longer to learn how to control their bodies than maybe girls, as far as wetting the bed is concerned. But anyway, he had that problem. As I learned better, I did better. But anyway, getting back to spanking the child, I am now a proponent of not spanking the child. Now, what would you like to say?
Now, my thing is, I have a few points here, so just hold on a bit. Hold on. Now, people would say that that's what's wrong with the world, that we always are like trying to candy coat things. And actually, in the real world, it's not like that, right? So you said you don't like to say the word punishment, that you like corrective behavior. But now I feel like we live in a world.
Action.
Excuse me, corrective action. Sorry about that. Yeah. So my thing is, but isn't that kind of like what's wrong with the world? Everybody's so soft now. These kids can't take nothing. Anything that comes at them, it seems like they're not as prepared as maybe this is what other people say, because I don't believe this is true about all millennials or all Gen Z, but people would argue that, these two new generations, anything that comes at them, their feelings get hurt, or they don't know how to take adversity because, they never got punished or never had to face consequences like that. So when they get into the real world, they're ill prepared for the harsh realities that come with being an adult.
There are realities come with even when you're a child, because one thing about what we like to call karma is just generally, I believe, the natural consequences of your action. And even children have consequences to their behavior. Now, whether they have to be accountable for their behavior, it means something different. I think if they were, it depends on the age of the child, their ability to understand the wrongness of their actions. Even the Bible, even the criminal justice system, that's why we have a juvenile justice system. There are even certain ages of children within the juvenile justice system where the kids are not held accountable because they're too young. The juvenile justice system would not hold a 2 or 3 year old accountable for any criminal behavior that they would hold a 9-year-old to a 10-year-old to.
But that's what I'm saying.
because
because
there's no. Go
go ahead,
ahead.
I'm sorry. But that's what I'm saying. Before the kid even gets to the juvenile court system or whatever, isn't it because that you spared the rod, so now your kids are ending up being raised by the state or being
Now,
in the system.
now I believe that the rod can be metaphorically or used metaphorically. You should definitely use corrective action. Soon as you see that your child understands in a general way, in an age appropriate way, even a child, oftentimes a small child even knows. Like, for example, when my daughter, my second daughter, was about, I think she's maybe 3. And I caught her with cookies all around her mouth before dinner. And she knew was not supposed to have cookies before dinner because we didn't want to spoil her appetite. So when I caught her, the crumbs were all around her mouth, but she put her right hand behind her back where she had the cookie. That told me right there that she knew right from wrong. She remembered that she should not have that cookie, and she was hiding it because she didn't want to have consequences of disobeying the rule of not eating cookies before dinner. And she was just 3 years old. So what I would do for her is take something or give her corrective action. I told you not to have a cookie before dinner. So now tonight you would not have dessert. You would not have a cookie because you already had your cookie. Mm-hmm. So that would be a natural consequence of her action. You already had your cookie, so no cookie for you after dinner.
Well, I agree with you. I was just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, but that's good. It's good. I appreciate you doing that because why I'm not a proponent of giving corporal punishment to children. I am definitely in favor of as soon as possible, as soon as age appropriate correction. Like when your baby is a few months old, for example, and he starts saying ma, and you repeat it and you try to tell him words, you start introducing words to that child. So you're teaching. It's always a teaching moments, using moments. I've heard people say that as a teaching moment. When you first hear that baby, first you weren't trying to teach that baby to say mom, because you thought the baby was too young. But when you heard it, you got it. I know when I heard my child say mom, dad, I had one daughter say cookie very early on. But I like that. So I encourage that by repeating it. And if she said different words for going to, she needs to use the restroom. We just encourage that. So you have that's why I like to say teaching moments. That same part of a corrective action. Use that as a teaching moment. Age appropriate. You can't, like some people, I've seen some parents do this. They give their little kid, they talk to them for 30 minutes. For 30 minutes, talking to a 3-year-old. That kid did not comprehend half of the crap that you told them. Age appropriate. Little children respond to action. If that child has done something like the cookie, he will remember when you say you will not have cookie for dinner. Make it age appropriate. If he's fighting with his sibling, okay, you need time out. You're tired. Why don't we put you down for a nap, or why don't you go and sit? Not why don't you, really. The answer is go and sit and think about it. Have your own personal time, age appropriately, based on his age. Like I've heard many people say, if they're 2, give them 2 minutes. They're 5 minutes. Okay, that sounds good to me. Because if he didn't get it in that 5 minutes, he start fighting again, there's another 5 minutes. And then if he keeps fighting on the 3rd try, and he's had 2 5-minute time to reflect or just to chill, to calm down. Maybe not even to reflect. Maybe too young to reflect. I don't know what kids be doing when they're in timeout. Some people like to call it timeout, but I call it just having some personal time. On that third time, and the child is still not calm. He's still fighting with his sibling. Well, we're gonna get prepared for bed. It's bedtime. You should have already had your dinner. And if you haven't had your dinner, I'm still gonna prepare you for bed. I'm gonna wake you up in time for dinner after everybody else is eating. You and I are going to have dinner. I'm gonna watch you have your dinner and sit and chat with you, whatever you want to talk about. But you need some personal time. Maybe you even need personal time with me. I'm just saying different things you can do with kids besides using corporal punishment, spanking them.
I agree with that. Also, I have here in my notes, I am not a parent, but I am an older sibling. And the thing is that I think that with different kids, you have to do different things. When I think about how my sister and I grew up, we didn't get very many spankings. One, because we don't like pain. So that was a very big motivator for us not to go ahead and do a lot of things that maybe some kids were doing at our age, because we really don't like being hit. But I know some kids have a high pain threshold. So getting a spanking, you don't want to get to the point where you're just spanking and spanking, and you're getting tired with that,
And you become abusive too.
Right.
It can easily go overboard.
Right.
Most parents that injure their children, it's probably because the child that they're trying to discipline does have high tolerance to
Right.
pain.
So I think that you're right, where you have to find some other things, because I know, some little kids, they hate taking a nap. It is the most painful thing in the world to have them separated and they're going to take a nap while the rest of the world is going on without them. So I think you're right. I think it not only is it just like finding other things to discipline your kids, finding other avenues to discipline your children, but also you got to take the child into account, because different children have different needs and have different tolerances. And then I also have, I'm sorry.
I was just going to correct you. Said different. I was going to say tools. I like to call them tools.
Oh yeah.
That you could use to bring about that correction to that wrong behavior, inappropriate behavior of the child.
Right. And you were talking about like younger kids, but I noticed that, well, it does start when they're younger, right? Because like once you teach them when they're younger, they usually don't tend to do too many things that kind of step out of line, because we've kind of established it already.
Exactly.
But when you get to older kids, like in their, I guess, preteens and teens, that definitely helps with different, I guess, instruments of corrective action,
Tools, different
tools of corrective action, because, I know that I was in gymnastics, and taking away, especially if you're trying to like really work towards something. So having to sit out, a gymnastics practice, or having to sit out a football practice, or, something that is very painful. That's very painful, because, you know that you're trying to work towards something, trying to get towards something. So if you're not in there practicing, the likelihood of you being ready for a game or a competition, that takes away from it. And it makes you think about some things, is it worth it? For me, sometimes the punishment was worth it. I was going to go ahead and, get one of my siblings straight. And I was all prepared to take the punishment. But sometimes it makes you stop and think about things like, is it worth, having to sit out or not being able to go do this because, I'm not obeying the rules.
Right. Were you prepared to get your sibling straight, or you were prepared to set him straight?
Both.
Both.
Right. And I think that's what's kind of wrong right now, right? With the world that you want to do your dirt and do what's misbehave, but you don't want to take accountability for that. And I think that like how my parents raised me, is that I was fully prepared. When my mom told me that, hey, you keep on fighting with your brother, you're going to be put out the car. I was prepared to be put out the car, and I was preparing my little brother too, to be prepared to what's coming. If I get kicked out, it just all rolls all downhill. I'm going to beat you all the way till we get home. And I got to keep my promise too, even if I get tired, because that's what we do. We stick to what we say we're going to do. So I was prepared for that.
So
And I
you
think
don't
that, mhm.
go ahead.
And I think that that's a part of good child rearing too. You know, that not only, okay, so you did whatever you did, and it was you know, it was bad, and you know it was wrong. That's not our rules. But also, don't sit here and act like you're an innocent person. Go ahead. Now you got to do the time. Go ahead, whatever that is. You know, you're going to sit out of practice. You know, you can't have the car, you can't have the phone, you can't, you know, do social media or whatever. That is the punishment. And you knew that going into it. So don't sit here all heartbroken now that you can't do it. Can't go to prom or can't go to a dance.
Or
You knew.
isn't it? But it is okay to be heartbroken. But one must, he must, or she must remember, you. This is what you choose. Like they said, you choose the action, but you don't choose the consequences. That's everything in life. Like
Mm-hmm.
that you start teaching kids early on. There are consequences to your behavior. And even as
Yeah.
adults, for all your life, there will be a consequence for your behavior, whether it's good or bad. I just want to kind of outline where I want to go, because I don't want to forget some good points I want to bring
Okay.
out. For one thing, I want to talk slightly about the history of whippings, spanking in America. Many times I've heard many so-called, and I'm not trying to get racial, I'm just telling the truth. White people look at black people, oh, all black people spank their children, black people spank their children, but spanking and whoopings came over from Europe. It was a European thing. And it was not something that was known in Africa. The slaves learned this from the master. When in slavery, the master would beat all the slaves, the children and the adults, for any infraction, minor, whatever they feel was right. So in order to protect their children from the master and from the supervisor, what you would call, what is that famous slave guy called Mr. Duran? He was the master slave. There were books written about him. Do you remember?
I'm thinking like Uncle Tom, but I know it's not Uncle Tom.
No, he supervised the slaves, and he was very cruel to them. And there were many books written
Lynch,
about.
Willie Lynch. No, that's
Yeah,
the one.
I think no, that sounds like Willie Lynch was a black man regarding capital punishment.
Oh, I thought Willie Lynch was the person that taught America how to do
It
slavery.
could be. Maybe that was it. But anyway, he was a cruel guy. But I just wanted to be very clear on the fact that whoopings and physical corporal punishment is something that the Europeans brought, and slaves incorporated that into their discipline of their children in order to save their lives, because the master was not beyond killing the children, the mother, the father, and the kid. So, and black mothers no mother would want to see their children die. So even when I remember when I was growing up, I often heard my family members' mothers say, I'm gonna whoop you so the man won't whoop you. I'm whooping you out of love. He whoops you out of hate and anger. So I'm gonna whoop you so he won't whoop you. I'm gonna whoop you so you won't go to prison. And I used to say, I'm glad I got a whooping because it made me a better person. Now I have thought about it for many years, and I'm in my 50s now. And so I think I can reframe that. I wish that I was disciplined in a different way, in a way that didn't involve corporal punishment, but given the choice or a spanking or a wink, I would have the spanking, especially as being a Black person in America. And being a Black person in America, you have to, especially back then, but now too, in order to survive and maybe even thrive, you have to behave in a certain way, in a way that white people can get away with it, but Black people won't. You'll either be punished or you'll be looked frowned upon if you behave in that same way that a white boy or white girl would behave. So that's why the slave, I want to just talk about that history. And then I want to talk about single Black mothers and spanking their children. I have spoken to single Black mothers within my family and tried to encourage them not to whoop, spank, hit, any form of corporal punishment, and have given them different suggestions. When you are raising children as a single parent, as a single mother, it is very challenging because so much is going on with you. You're wearing so many hats. And then you got your personal life that you care, because usually you're a young person. And so, and then you're single. So you got this single thing that's going on. Either got a boyfriend and he's not acting right. I'm gonna tell you why I know he's not acting right. Because if he was acting right, he'll be marrying you now, wouldn't he? You know, and so these things are on her mind. And then the children, I heard a psychologist once say, we're all born sociopaths. Which what he meant by that is that when children are born, all of us, it's me. You give no consideration to the world around you, to include that your mom just got out from work, her boyfriend is cheating on her, she has very little food in the house, her feet hurts, all these other hats she must wear for her family. But the child said, Mom, I got homework. Mom, everything, Mom. You misbehave in school. The school's calling Mom. So Mom is getting so frustrated with all the many things and all the pull on her time and her resources. And she hits the child, and the child is injured. That mother, in my opinion, probably would kill another human being if they treated her child the way she just treated her child. But because of this, all the things going on in her life, she hurts her child. That's why I tell mothers, especially single mother, especially single Black mother. One reason I'm putting out the race thing in this, there are white and other races of single mothers. But if that child is injured, the criminal justice system is much more harsh on Black women, Black people, period. But I mean, in a parenting situation, it is going to act upon you in a way that it generally does not act upon a white mother similarly situated. I'm gonna give you a personal example. What I'm talking, it's not about criminal justice, but just how people look at Black mothers parenting versus white parenting. I was in a paralegal program in Devils Lake, North Dakota, in my lifetime. And at that time, I brought my two young daughters to live on campus with me. And there was another young mother. We were both young, 24 years old. And she had one little boy. And the house mother of the woman, you could call it den mother. Back then they had that type of thing, wherein even though we had our own apartment, you may call it residence assistance.
Yeah, an RA.
RA, but then they had like a husband, a wife, or just a older woman who would supervise the building and the people they're in. And so this husband and wife who supervised everything, they noted that even though I was married, I was logistically single because my husband was in another city serving his country, and I was in Devils Lake, North Dakota, going through a paralegal program. And this lady was a Christian woman, so she took the white child and she would take him to give the mother a break. I did know that, but she never, at that point, she had not given me a break for my kids. Then one day she knocked on my door and she said, Maria, I want you to forgive me. We have talked, my husband and I, and we noticed that you have 2 daughters and we have never give you any respite care for so you can go out and do something, get you an ice cream cone just by yourself. And we want to do that for you today. And they offered to that day wasn't a good time. I said maybe another day. And anyway, to wrap this up, I want to say this. See, they never considered, even though I lived right across the hallway from them. They it took a while for them to see that I had 2 children. That young lady had only 1 child, and they gave her respite care a lot versus me. And that is still happening today. The way the society look at single Black mothers versus single white mothers, there's more compassion for them. So I say again to you, single Black mothers, do not use any type of corporal punishment on your children. If you need help, seek out help from the church, from the community resources, from your next door neighbor. The results of using corporal punishment on children, I truly believe this. Children feel like their parents don't love them. And even though that's not true, they like, if my parent is hitting me, they must not love me, which we know is not true, but that's how the little innocent child mind see it. And then they grow up with that, and many children, especially girls, they try to seek out love in abusive relationships because they've learned that. I know I got to wrap this up. And also, studies have shown many, if not most of, not even many, most of the Black men in prison had corporal punishment because the argument is that they behaved the way they did because they were treated harshly, physical punishment as children. I would have to look further into that. But as getting down to my final statement, I think there is a more excellent way. Spanking is better than winking. Spanking is better than winking, but there is a more excellent way. Learning new techniques, and language means a lot. Words are important. You don't want to punish your child. You want to correct the inappropriate behavior. That's why I call it corrective action and learning 2 different techniques. If you don't know techniques, ask someone that may know. Google it, YouTube it. You YouTube and Google everything else. Is this child that you say you would kill somebody for? How about living for your child? Putting some work in, being a better parent, taking parenting classes, learning about other ways to correct the inappropriate behavior.
Okay. Well, that's it for RiaTalk, where we're always keeping it real about real life. Please leave your comments and your compliments on our Instagram page at RiaRealTalk, and we'll see you next week.